They use all kinds of tactics for weather modification.
Of April this year, there are more than 150 different weather modification programs.
Cloud seeding, there's the chemtrails, laser beams.
We physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts.
We're going to show evidence of this through this entire podcast.
Right.
I don't even know if I should get into.
Get into it.
Oh my.
Is it there?
Gosh. Our information is being stripped from us.
That's why people say that there's an agenda.
Wow.
Is that not it?
That
And again,
is-
you can look this stuff up.
You shape your own opinion based on the information and the facts that we've gathered.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Our Life Be Like. So before we get into this episode, I just want to say this is the worst shirt.
I love it.
Okay, well, it looks great online, but I feel like I have steamed this 100,000 times, and it's just like well, I guess some of the imprint has gone away, but I just don't know what it's going to look like on camera.
No, it is working.
Okay,
honey.
well, good. Until I edit this and I'm just like, oh my God, this freaking outfit.
Well, that's how I felt about.
Yeah, her pink outfit.
I was a shiny pink Pepto-Bismol bottle.
You were! Look at us. We need to go more matte tones, I guess, in the future. So to start off this episode, you are going to show us a video that actually happened literally 20 minutes away from me. And before I give my thoughts on all of this, let's just get into the video.
The tornado that careened through Nash County this week, injuring 16 people and damaging dozens of buildings in its path, has certainly caught us all by surprise. And yet conspiracy theorists on social media are suggesting the tornado was man-made in order to crash into a Pfizer vaccine plant in Rocky Mount. Paul Spey looks into that claim for PolitiFact.
That tornado that ripped open the Pfizer plant in Rocky Mount was someone or something capable of sending it so the company could claim a bunch of insurance money. That's what this person claimed the other day in a long, speculative Instagram post that somehow got 1,500 likes. But it's baseless. Fact checkers for USA Today actually looked into a similar claim last year after a different social media user discovered patent applications for tornado and hurricane machines. Now, there was a pending patent for an artificial tornado generating mechanism, as you can see here, that has since expired. There's also this other idea to use audio generators and sound waves to try to control tornadoes and hurricanes using this machine, and that's been abandoned too. More importantly, just because someone files for a patent does not mean their device would work.
He is so condescending. Like, I can't with this. But when this all happened, I mean, I have friends that live in Rocky Mount. They said this came out of nowhere. There's no warnings. Out of nowhere, this tornado just popped up. And I'm telling you, I live 20 minutes away from Rocky Mount, specifically from this Pfizer plant that got demolished. And you look at the areas around and it's like, which I guess that's, tornadoes. And just, they have a path.
It's not far-fetched at all. Like, they're trying to make us think there would be no way. I mean, these patents were thrown out.
Well, but he's saying that, yes, there is a device that can create these tornadoes.
But they threw them out.
Yeah, as if the technology doesn't exist. Something I want to point out, again, we're going to talk about this later in this episode, but they have been using weather modification since the early 70s, and this is just what we know about. If they've been using it since the Vietnam War, then we know that they've had this capability prior to this. But something I want to show you, I'm going to pop this request up on the screen. The senator requested this back in 1971, which again was conveniently during the Vietnam War, which we'll talk about this later in the podcast. What also was going on during the Vietnam War? Operation Popeye. At the bottom of this letter, it literally says, several federal agencies support weather modification programs which involve cloud seeding activities. Major research programs include precipitation modification, fog and cloud modification, hail suppression, and lightning and hurricane modification. So they're telling you right here, these are the capabilities they've had during this time of 1970. We're in 2023 and it's baseless claims that they can create a tornado. Yes, we know that weather modification exists, but also there's literal government programs. Like in Utah, they have a program called Apple Tree. We'll put it up here, but you can Google this. They use cloud seeding to modify the weather, and it's just so mind mind-blowing how this is still labeled as a conspiracy theory. It's like,
that's the biggest thing. It's just like,
well, maybe people don't know this stuff exists. Like, well, that's why we're trying to show you. It's not a conspiracy theory. Like, there are agencies, there are programs out there. There's videos we're showing right here of them modifying the weather.
This is the loudest sound you could possibly conceive. And as it turns out, the cleanest.
The most amazing thing is that cloud up there, which was generated by the engine, is just a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. It's water vapor. And in about an hour's time, someone in Mississippi is going to get wet washing. It will actually rain. It's raining! That's unbelievable! NASA's playing God. It's making its own weather.
Alex and I have done a bunch of research on this and really dove into this topic because with anything that we present to you guys, we don't just want to have baseless claims. We want to actually give you guys some facts that we've come across. One particular video I found interesting was off of C-SPAN, which is a news station. When I went to look for the clip, because I had seen it circulating on social media, and it said it was permanently moved from their website. But the internet is forever. I was able to find the video.
There is weather control techniques. We have a complete package on that, which I did not bring, but I certainly will see to it that it is brought in for the record. Number one, the entire patents on the equipment. Number two, Senator Claiborne Pell's complete statement and story of his own that not only does it exist, but that we even utilize it as far back as the Vietnam War. And at this point in time, we have all the documents to prove it. And if you think that 85 tornadoes takes place in the middle of our growing area by simultaneous accident, I'm sorry. With the equipment that's already set up internationally, it is proven and documented. We will supply you with those documents. And this is quoting actually Senator Claiborne Pell himself, that they are the greatest weapon ever created in the world. And that's the senator's own statement. So yes, I do stand on that.
So again, we know that they are able to control the weather. Again, they were using this technology during the Vietnam War. Dubai actually controls their weather right now. So I want to show you a video of them talking about them controlling their weather, but also the effects of how they control their weather, what that means for weather in other areas. Not to mention what Dubai and a lot of countries are using for cloud seeding is salt crystals coated with titanium dioxide. Now, if you don't understand how bad titanium dioxide is for the human, Google it, but they are putting this in the clouds.
Scientists in Dubai can now literally modify their weather, but will controlling the weather be used for good or for evil? In July of 2021, the United Arab Emirates National Center of Meteorology released a video showing a rainstorm that had been created using weather-modifying technology. Scientists in Dubai used high-powered lasers and other advanced technology that were mounted to drones to make the rain fall from the desert sky. Scientists have found a way to manifest clouds and rain using artificial means. If they can make their own clouds, then that's another part of the weather they can control. This is when scientists use salt crystals coated with titanium dioxide to make clouds. But let's be clear, there is something nerve-wracking about the idea of putting titanium nanoparticles into the air we breathe. Once the titanium particles are in the air, they will be carried by the Earth's winds wherever they blow. Is this safe? We'll let you be the judge.
Again, they tell us this stuff, which I just want to point out. Whenever you Google, the fact check says, no, the media did not admit governments are utilizing geoengineering technologies. And it's like, first of all, yes, they did. And
Multiple
yes,
times.
they do.
Yeah.
Like, the fact checks are absolutely ridiculous.
The clouds that are made will not remain in one spot. This means that as the cloud drifts with the wind, they'll bring the moisture contained within them wherever they go. Once out of the desert, the artificial clouds may cause flooding in other regions of the world. So what Dubai does with cloud seeding would not just affect the United Arab Emirates, but its neighbors as well. The future of weather modification is both exciting and terrifying at the same time. But the United Arab Emirates is not the only country that's investing in this technology. Cloud seeding is already being experimented with in the United States.
They're cloud seeding and creating rain and other weather events. We know that they have the technology to do that. But as they're saying is, once this happens, they don't just stop the weather. So it actually creates problem in flooding in other parts of the world. But then what gets blamed for these very things? Climate change. And that's why, again, you have so many people talking about, well, there's a climate change hoax, because they are changing the weather that is then having adverse effects, and now you're claiming it's climate change. It's like, no, you're the one that's changing the climate. And later in this video, they point out that this becomes a diplomatic problem, and this could cause wars because you're having one country manipulating the weather, but then it has adverse events in other countries. No, they're not going to argue, because if you know anything about the Paris Agreement, they are all agreeing to this climate change, which America, Donald Trump, he opted out of the Paris Agreement during his term. Well, America just got opted back into the Paris Agreement in 2021 under Joe Biden. But the whole thing about the Paris Agreement, the reason why it's failing is because they claim that fossil fuels is causing climate change. I understand what they're saying because fossil fuels emit carbon dioxide. Well, what naturally cures carbon dioxide? Trees. There's over 3 trillion trees in the world. The math ends up being like there's like 400 something trees per a person. Plus, you have the ocean, which is absorbing the heat. Well, now they're putting out information that the ocean the temperature is warming up. And I'm wondering, who is warming up the ocean? I don't believe that it's climate change. Again, I'm not saying climate change doesn't exist. Clearly it exists, but who's causing it to exist?
Some of what we are seeing is man-made, but man-made in a different way than you may guess. Weather modification programs, experimental ones done by private companies, done by the United States government, are underway. There's more than 50 of them in operation across the United States. These programs impact agriculture, and there are programs around the world, international corporations, are modifying our weather all the time. Most of it is chemically altered, so that what happens is that we are putting chemicals, ground-based chemicals that are shot into the air, or chemicals coming from airplanes that change and modify our weather. And this is trapping warmth in our atmosphere.
Clearly it's the ones that's changing the weather.
Yeah, I have trust issues with everything. All of these manipulations, whether it be the weather or politics, anything, they do it for a bigger purpose. There's a greater hidden agenda behind these things. So it just makes you think like, well, if these things actually exist and they can increase a hurricane strength.
Right. You don't think they're doing it?
Yeah, exactly. They use all kinds of tactics for weather modification, cloud seeding, there's the chemtrails, there's frequencies.
They use laser beams.
Yeah. We're going to show evidence of this through this entire podcast.
Right.
Chemtrails, I feel like, are talked about now more than they ever used to be. Even Lana Del Rey has that song Chemtrails Over the Country Club.
They always tell us what they're doing, whether it's the political people or the artists.
Yeah, which they're the puppets for the elite.
Yeah.
So they're going to use their little hidden messages to tell us. Lana Del Rey's talking about it, so it must be true. No, just kidding. I've talked to friends and family about chemtrails, and they're like, oh, you mean contrails?
The emissions
trails.
Right, from the planes. Like those little lines that you see.
Which they disappear right away.
Right.
And if you notice with chemtrails, they stay in the sky for hours.
Yeah, it slowly dissipates. There's a clear difference.
Yeah.
We have 2 different kinds of trails in the sky right now. One are called contrails. These are very, very short exhaust trails that usually evaporate within a few minutes. You just look up at the sky and you'll just see a jet, sometimes with 4 trails, but it evaporates pretty quickly. How many of you know what chemtrails are? The military and some commercial planes are spraying us with what are called chemtrails. And oftentimes, before there's a weather front, there are heavy assaults from these planes just before a weather front has changed. Military and some commercial jets have been fitted with huge barrels of at least 49 different kinds of documented chemical poisons. Among other documented ingredients in this toxic man-made clouds are pathogenic molds, fungi, weaponized viruses, and made in some places like the secret site at Fort Detrick, Maryland, which is supposed to be a cancer site. But there are a number of scholars and professors tracking this that have big questions about this. What do these do to the human body? Barium is an alkaline earth mineral. It was discovered in 1774. At low doses, it can act as a muscle stimulant. At high doses, it detrimentally affects the heart and the nervous system. Barium is toxic to all mammals, and that means not just humans. Aluminum, which is the most abundant metal in the Earth's crust, is known to diminish kidney function, and destroy brain cells and cognitive function.
Again, let's critically think about that. We've been digging into this topic, and there's this website called geoengineeringwatch.org, which is so informative. And if you want to learn more about this topic, go to their website because it is overwhelmingly full of information. But there was one video in particular that we thought summed up a lot of this information that we wanted to share with you guys as well.
The first person that told me airplanes were spraying chemicals into the sky to create artificial clouds, I really thought that person was crazy.
I had a friend point out the chemtrails one day, years ago, and I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, isn't that just what planes do?
I laughed the first time I heard that. I said, there's absolutely no way.
Does a secret government program exist that requires airplanes to spray chemicals in our skies? Is there evidence to support this claim? And if so, why is it happening? Is it to combat climate change, or could it be something more sinister?
So I became interested in what was going on, started researching the issue, which many people refer to as chemtrails. Came to the realization that something probably was happening in the sky.
Geoengineering destroys rain clouds, it destroys blue sky, it creates just a murky white flat sky.
This, however, has been dismissed by mainstream news, science, and government agencies who offer that these are naturally occurring streaks of condensed water vapor known as contrails. Award-winning weatherman Scott Stevens began to notice strange weather patterns during the late 90s.
What I learned is I'm not forecasting the natural processes of this planet anymore. I have to anticipate, not forecast, but anticipate an agenda. I truly thought as I began to talk and to share my observations that there would have been a fairly healthy movement to investigate these things. I knew that I would lose my job. I just didn't know how quickly it would happen.
We used to see, occasional contrails, little short trails that would dissipate of jet exhaust. But now we see these lingering chemtrails, and you'll see grid spraying, and the planes go back and forth, and you'll see trails go horizon to horizon. This isn't water vapor. This is material being put in the atmosphere. And I could compare this with a skywriter. When you see someone doing skywriting, that's not water vapor. It's material that sticks.
These chemtrails are absolutely required to impact whatever weather event they were designing. And the trails were an absolute necessary ingredient for them to achieve their weather modification goals.
During the 2008 Olympics, China boasted that they would have perfect weather for their opening ceremony.
We checked into if that actually happened with China. It did, which also is interesting because there has been some flooding going on recently
in China,
in Hong Kong. It is bad.
But that's what happens when you modify the weather. I wanted to have this drag queen character, and her name would be Miss MISS Information.
I remember that. I love that.
I know. Could you imagine if I had a character named Miss Information?
That is so good.
Stay tuned. Miss Information might be out and about.
Yes, I love that. People are talking about this on the news and admitting this, that's why it's funny to us that it is labeled a conspiracy theory, because it's all over the news. But then there's conflicting information, like the video we watched in the beginning where the guy's like, no, this is
baseless claims.
Yeah.
Like, we're idiots to be thinking about this.
And of course, normal people submitting patents is different from government programs and secret information. Let's not forget that the military and the government, their technologies are 20 plus years ahead of what we have any idea even exists.
If whatever they're showing us and whatever is in our hands, honey, they are hundreds, I feel like 20s of years ahead of us. They're not going to give us something that they already don't have the answer to or have the capability 10 times more than we do.
Exactly.
So if they're showing us and telling us, yes, we can control the weather, you don't think that they're not out here creating full-on hurricanes? My sister-in-law, her mom's boyfriend was on Operation Popeye. So he can tell you he was in the plane cloud seeding. So this was successful in the 70s.
Yeah. So he actually met somebody personally who was involved in this.
I mean, it drives him crazy when people call weather modification a conspiracy theory. He's like, dude, I was in the plane. I was changing the weather in the 70s.
The thing is, a lot of people that are involved in these operations aren't thinking that there's anything more sinister behind these things. And like, we don't know for sure. We're just speculating. Yeah, this is speculation for sure. But
again, the speculation's not that if they're changing the weather. We know that there's weather modification. We're just saying we're speculating if there's a sinister reason of why they're doing this. But something else I want to point out, they have over $400 billion of donations that these nonprofit charities get, and only like $2 to $8 billion goes to environmental nonprofit stuff. And it's just like, so you mean to tell me there's over $400 billion that goes into nonprofit organizations, but then when these adverse events of weather modification does take place, like what happened in Maui, these mainstream celebrities, multi-billionaires have the audacity to tug on our heartstrings. Like, you guys, we got to get together. We've got to donate. It's like, how about you go and donate? We're in a recession right now. You guys are causing the problem, and then y'all going to gouge our pockets to fix it? No, thank you.
There's a lot of speculation on what happened with Maui. We won't get too deep into it, but
we'll get banned.
Yeah, because we might get banned. It's pretty
crazy.
deep. That was something that made us kind of a little bit enraged, honestly, because it's just...
Well, because the people try to call us crazy. They're like, you really think that the government can do this? And it's like, yes, they can. Like, not only we're going to show you, we've shown you guys stuff of them admitting, yes, we can control the weather, but also back with the Maui situation, the specific land that was attacked was historic land.
That they wanted.
And
then the governor went on the news after and said, we're looking at ways to acquire the land. How dare you? Right? These people lost their homes.
And you saw the clip of Joe Biden saying, like, they had everybody there the day before it happened.
Yeah.
It's like,
why were they there?
Is that?
Last week, I appointed Bob Fenton, one of the nation's leading emergency managers, and I mean that's not hyperbole, who's been on the ground in Hawaii since before the fires erupted as our chief federal response coordinator to lead our long-term recovery on Maui.
My mom said that. She was like, I was watching Joe Biden and I was like, he mentioned the guy that was there overlooking all the fires. He was there the day before. And she thought, was that a slip up? Because that's like really weird. Why was he there prior?
Again, like I say, they have to tell us what they're doing, which we'll talk about this in the Bible episode. But the darkness cannot operate on this earth spiritually, legally in the spiritual realm. The devil cannot operate on this earth without telling you this is how we operate. Same thing, with the celebrities of the world. They have to tell you who their allegiance is, because otherwise they cannot operate. They cannot continue to have their career, have their success if they don't say, hey, this is who we serve. But it's all seen as like a joke, like they're just trolling you.
So there was one other clip that was actually on the news that we wanted to share with you guys, and we'll just share that right now.
Lasers? Really? To change the weather?
That's right. We physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War.
So again, they have the capability to control the weather. Why this is so hard for people to understand, or why people call it a conspiracy theory, is mind-blowing. But
they're like, yeah, we have the technology, but we're not using it or anything.
Right.
We have it. Countries like China are for sure, hey, they admittedly used it for a good reason during the Olympics, but
you don't think people in this world will use it for nefarious reasons?
Exactly.
Of April this year, there are more than 150 different weather modification programs around the world. Since about 2000, the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy have been spraying the entire United States sky with a toxic brew of chemicals and other biologic agents. And we have to remember that we have a corporate-owned press where 85% of radio, television, and print media is owned by 5 corporations. So they're not going to talk about things that are of really serious consequence. And that's somewhat of the blessing, a mixed blessing of the internet, but there's certainly plenty of information on weather modification.
Honestly, anytime I hear Hurricane Katrina, all these catastrophic hurricanes that happen, again, they have the capability when a natural hurricane comes up, they can seed it to make it even bigger. You make more money on catastrophes.
Everything.
Yeah.
People running to the stores to get all this
Right.
stuff. Like, it really does help the
economy.
Yeah, the economy.
But
every time.
These elites make so much money on our downfalls and our catastrophes. And who would ever believe or question that these hurricanes, these storms are man-made or man-amplified?
I get it. We don't really want to think that these people that are in charge are doing things to hurt us. And we, as good-hearted, normal people, would never do that. So we're thinking about like what our intentions are for humanity. And I think that's what a lot of people's problems are. Before I kind of woke up to everything going on in the world, that was a hard thing for me to grasp. I just didn't believe any of the things going on because I was just thinking about myself and thinking like,
well, you think like
never do something like that.
But also it's like these people have to live in this world too. So like, why would they F up everything if they also have to live here? Honey, because they don't plan on staying here.
Yeah, well, there's underground bunkers, for one.
This is an Opidum, a type of luxury doomsday bunker that could soon be underneath the mansions of some of the world's richest people. Well, officials say if you have a net worth of more than $100 million and can shell out at least $10 million for a bunker, could be yours.
So they don't even have to breathe the air up here.
But they also know that the Lord is coming. They know that there is an ultimate demise that's going to happen. They know that a one world order has to be created. The Antichrist is coming to take over. They are preparing all for this very day. These elites, these globalists, they know that God exists. They know that the devil exists. But also in the Bible, it says that the Lord will send a mass delusion. So these people are delusional enough to believe that they can defeat God.
This leads us to our next point on this topic, which is frequencies. That hasn't been talked about in the videos we've watched so far, other than the laser beams. I guess that could be categorized as a frequency.
Yeah, but we're more talking about like the organization HAARP.
Exactly. Let's check out a video from Sheldon Thompson. He is a citizen journalist, and I love his videos. They're really informative.
The real reason why we see this ripple effect happening in the sky is going to blow your mind. Now, this is what resonant frequencies look like when they are pitched into water. So different frequencies are being pitched into this water, and it creates different shapes and different patterns. Now, let's take a look at what this frequency does to sand, 4129. See this pattern? Looks very similar to this pattern now, doesn't it? This pattern happens because they are beaming ELF frequencies into the sky. And this is exactly what they are using to do this. It is called HAARP, and it's run by the military. Now, you can literally go outside and observe this yourself. They drop chemicals from planes. Then they use HAARP to disperse those chemicals and block out the sun. All you gotta do is look into this stuff. They literally admit they're spraying millions of tons of chemicals into the atmosphere to block out the sun. And you can go look up the hundreds of patents the US has on weather control and doing exactly what I'm telling you. This is what a normal sky looks like, guys. And this is what weather modification looks like. This is why you don't see skies like this in Mexico, because they banned weather modification.
So, old Billy Gates.
Billy Gates.
Billy Gates.
Oh, I think we all collectively like just despise this man.
I just don't trust the guy at all. There's some people that look at what he's doing as good.
Well, what they may be shown, it seems like it's good, but also Mr. Gates' little funds has its hands in a lot of nefarious projects. He funds a lot of things that is population control, weather manipulation, suppressing the truth.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's behind some of the fact checking that's going on.
Well, him and George Soros.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's also blocking out the sun, which we didn't get into too deeply. Oh, you know what? There is a video I have that we could share on that.
I mean, it's also like Google it. It literally says that Bill Gates is blocking out the sun. Like,
exactly.
What is he using to block out the sun? It's like these heavy metals and all this other stuff. And it's like, oh, but that's totally okay for the environment and for your health.
Claiming, quote, solar radiation modification would enable better informed decisions about the potential risk and benefits of SRM as a component of climate policy alongside the foundational elements of greenhouse gas emissions mitigation.
Well, this is actually Bill Gates funding this as well through Harvard University. This is retro 1970s. In the 1970s, they believed that our fossil fuels were creating aerosols, blocking the sun, creating man-made global cooling. So they came up with the same kind of geoengineering solutions back then. They wanted to put black soot on the Arctic to melt it. There was one proposal to use nuclear energy to help loosen the Arctic.
Bill Gates has his hands in a lot of things, which that leads us to our next topic. in this discussion, and that is the mosquitoes that he's releasing. And I say he.
Right. I was going to say, he's just funding the organization.
The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is funding AlxJames, which is the company that is releasing these genetically modified mosquitoes. Now, the argument with them is that they are releasing these genetically modified mosquitoes with this gene.
So what they're doing is they're genetically modifying the male mosquitoes with this life-shortening gene so that the male mosquito will then go and mate with the female mosquito. And if that female mosquito has malaria or any other disease or virus that a mosquito would have, it would then pass on that life-shortening gene to that female mosquito. But what we're questioning is, and again, the male mosquito doesn't bite. So what if the male mosquito with that life-shortening gene passes it on to the female mosquito? Now she now has this life-shortening gene, but the female mosquito that can bite, what if it bites a human?
Before it dies.
Before it dies. So does that female mosquito then pass on that life-shortening gene to the human? They won't answer it.
Exactly.
It's like, again, population control. Good old Billy Gates. Silly boy.
Billy boy.
Like your favorite words. Critically think about this, guys.
Exactly.
I mean, really.
They don't even admit in different countries like that they're killing people this way, but they've done this in Africa for years. So that actually brings me to a video that is kind of scary because we're talking about Bill Gates. We're talking about population control. He's behind the creation of countless vaccines.
Genetically modified mosquitoes have gotten the green light to be released in America. They say these mosquitoes, they don't bite people, they just mate with the females, and they're modified so that the offspring die off. The lethality gene they put in, it actually doesn't kill all the mosquitoes. It only kills the females. The males go on living. In other words, the GMO mosquitoes do bite humans. Some of the programs are about using the mosquitoes for other things, like vaccinating people against their will. In September 2022, NPR declared that the researchers had successfully vaccinated people using these GMO mosquitoes. One of the lead scientists on the program told the publication that we use the mosquitoes like they're 1,000 small flying syringes.
But we're crazy. We're conspiracy theorists. You guys have a baseless fact.
It is terrifying that they're just flying vaccines out there right now.
I can't. With a life-shortening gene.
I know. And that's just one of the many things. Like, I don't know how many people are killed by mosquitoes per year.
This literally says mosquitoes are the world's deadliest animal.
They are. I'm deathly afraid of mosquitoes. I hate them so much. I run from them like I'm running from a tiger or something like that.
Especially these days.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Right? So there was this video that Bill Gates put out during Mosquito Week, which I didn't even know there was Mosquito Week. I guess maybe he created Mosquito Week.
Not Mosquito Week.
But it is so creepy.
Bill Gates made that?
He made that video.
And then gonna release 1 billion mosquitoes on us.
And there's, I know. And
the audacity of these people.
And I actually read an article on his Gates Notes website that was saying, I can't remember the country, but there's a lab that produces, I think it's 30 million mosquitoes a week. But if they're producing that many mosquitoes a week or however much it is, like imagine how many mosquitoes. And they're just, that's all they do. They're consistently making more mosquitoes. They're presenting it as a positive solution to a problem.
Well, yeah, if the female mosquito didn't bite,
exactly.
Like if the female mosquito would not bite us, then after they have then, gotten this life-shortening gene, cool. But this is an insect that bites, literally goes into our bloodstream. Why don't they answer the fact that this female mosquito would then pass on this life-shortening gene to the person it bites? If it can pass on their infection or their virus, you don't think it can pass on the life-shortening gene it just received? Something I also want to point out, how you look up and it's been fact-checked. No, these baseless conspiracy theory claims that Bill Gates is releasing mosquitoes. Well, no, Bill Gates is not the one releasing the mosquitoes. He's funding the company that is releasing the mosquitoes.
So of course they could say that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it is a fact that he's not the one releasing them.
Right. Bill Gates isn't like like opening boxes full of mosquitoes into like the atmosphere. Actually, I've seen a bunch of different videos recently of them releasing mosquitoes into the sky.
Oh yeah, we'll have that play.
Let's definitely play some of those. And that leads us to this video from a guy on TikTok, Zachary Wilson.
The release of 1 billion GMO mosquitoes has begun. They're being released in the Florida Keys as part of a plan to curb mosquito-borne illnesses like dengue, yellow fever, and Zika, and this is the first time they've been released in the US. The British biotech company releasing them is called AlxJames, and they obtained an experimental use permit from the EPA to release the mosquitoes on 6,000 acres across Florida and Texas. But a 2019 Yale University study warned the plan could backfire, creating hybrid mosquito babies that are actually more resistant to insecticides, and this could worsen the spread of the diseases. What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
Should we also mention the fact that this lady in Florida?
No.
Okay.
I already thought about it.
Okay, we won't mention that, so never mind.
And I was like, nah, it's a little deep. Well, so for one, Zachary Wilson did not mention that they're also releasing those mosquitoes in California. And when I looked it up, they said that they halted the program, but they started the program. So like the mosquitoes are already out there. So now they halted it, but okay, you can't just round those mosquitoes up and bring them back.
Right.
So those mosquitoes are out there now.
I'm telling you, the mosquitoes are bad out here right now.
I have bites on me right now, which is terrifying because you don't know if you...
All we can do is pray.
Exactly.
Because, honey, these people can do what they want to, but the Lord will only allow them to prosper, but so far. But we do know that this world is going to be given over to the kingdom of darkness. We know this. But if it's not our time, it's not our time.
It's ironic because Zachary Wilson mentioned dengue fever was one of the things that they were working to prevent. And we haven't had cases of dengue fever since...
I think it was like the 1930s.
And it was from like travelers, right?
Yeah.
And now it's popping back up.
There's an outbreak. And then there's malaria in Texas.
So yeah, there's malaria being discovered in Texas.
Just all of a sudden.
There hasn't been any issues. And now all of a sudden...
They release these mosquitoes and then it's like there's this uptick of mosquito-borne viruses now run rampant.
So... like Alex said, prayer is very important in this.
That's all you can do. I mean, don't stress about it.
Also, mosquito spray, but organic, natural.
Girl, they probably genetically modified them things to not have a whiff of scent.
That's so true.
You know, because they can genetically modify it to not even have a nose, like or whatever. Well, they're like little robots.
Well, actually, you know what's crazy? I saw a video of it's like we have a video for everything.
But no, I mean, we can see 100,000 videos, and if they don't make sense, they don't make sense.
Exactly.
But it's also one of the craziest things is how we talk about the fact check stuff. It's like a lot of these videos, you got to grab them now because they get deleted. And it's like, why are they deleting these videos? Why are you suppressing the facts and the evidence?
Yeah.
Weird. We also know that, and it's so annoying how like there's people in our community of like seeing this stuff and like calling it out and being called conspiracy theorists that manipulate videos, and they'll show stuff from like 30 years ago and claim it happened yesterday.
They discredit they
discredit the movement. Exactly. But again, I think they're planted. Like there's a lot of plants in this community as well.
Yeah,
so
I would believe that.
You do have to have discernment on a lot of this stuff.
You do. And we do. We're not just spewing out baseless information. Again, that's why we do our research before we present anything.
Yeah.
Another thing I was going to recommend, I heard, is vanilla extract. If you rub that on you.
I saw somebody doing that.
I'm like, ooh, that's kind of a good idea.
But I'm like, are you going to be sticky?
Apparently not. The one that I saw.
The mosquitoes are going to be like...
smells good. I know.
I think I'm about to tear me up. I'll have to use it myself.
I'm going to have to try it first. I know. I'm recommending it. I haven't even tried it.
Y'all get attacked by every other insect.
But the vanilla extract I have is a little too expensive to rub all over my body.
Right.
That stuff is expensive.
I'm like, this thing going to attract ants. I'm going to be covered all my, like keeping the mosquitoes away, but every other little insect is going to be all over you.
I know, that's so true. Well, I like the idea because it's like a natural perfume.
Right.
You know, coincides. But anyway, the biggest thing is prayer for sure.
What I do, I'm telling you, I think that the new outbreak, which they're already planning, I don't want to use the word planning. They're already preparing for a new pandemic.
And they're already discussing that there's going to be a pandemic.
They want to emphasize this. There's going to be
It's happening, guys.
Yeah.
That's what they say. There's a lot going on in the world. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We've got tons of other topics to discuss.
And again, we're not saying that the climate's not changing. Clearly the climate's changing, but again, who's the one changing the climate?
And also, it's beyond climate change. We know that pollution is an issue because they wrote pollution into the climate change problem.
Well, it's because of fossil fuels and that they're creating this carbon dioxide that's, creating these pollutants.
That's what they're saying.
Which, I mean, it's not that I'm not saying that fossil fuels aren't an issue, but also that's why we have trees. We're having this issue with fossil fuels. Plant more trees because it naturally gets rid of carbon dioxide. It uses carbon dioxide.
And that actually leads me to our problem with trash and plastic.
Oh my God. Do we have videos of them just dumping the plastic back into the water?
That enrages me.
Yeah.
That's going on all over our country. And China, I was over there a few years ago and they have ruined their water. Their beaches are just covered.
Well, isn't there a video of China literally stapling leaves to their trees?
The trees were brown and they were making them green.
It's so insane.
But what I was gonna say was the plastic problem, the trash problem that we have could also be resolved. I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's mushrooms that
breaks down the plastics.
They eat plastic.
Yep.
So there's solutions to these problems that are not being explored. And it's like, why? We have Billy Gates, who's got billions. Old Billy Gates billions.
Yeah, that's right. Billy Gates billions.
He has plenty of money to invest into these humanitarian things.
Yeah. But what the issue is that the reason why they want to genetically modify stuff is because they can make money off of it. There's actually a law where you cannot make money off of natural made things. So mushrooms and stuff, they can't make money off of this because it's naturally made.
And see, people need to know, though, that these things exist. That's what protests should be about. That's what we should be fighting for. Things that actually, not fighting, not actual fighting.
Yeah.
I mean, being passionate about.
Right.
We need to make a change in a positive direction using things that God gave us.
Yeah.
God gave us the solution to pretty much every problem here on this earth.
Yes. And also everything that the devil does, God uses for our advantage. Even talks about this in the Bible, how anything that the devil takes from you, the Lord returns to you sevenfold. What do you think is going to happen with how they're manipulating our earth? The Lord is going to give to us sevenfold, whether it's in this life or the next. We hope that this was a productive conversation. I know that there's many people out there that are probably glad we're talking about this stuff because they're seeing it as well. And they're just like, why aren't people who have a following really talking about this stuff? But that's why we wanted to create our podcast. It's we don't want to... Everybody has a podcast where they're just sitting back and gossiping and doing all this stuff, which, everything has a place for everything. Genetically modified fly. It's probably spying on us.
It is. That's not a real fly. It's a robot.
It probably is. Grabbing all of our information.
Probably.
Weirdos. Billy Gates.
We're kidding, guys. We're kidding.
Kidding about what?
About the
fly.
Robot fly.
True. We might have to put a disclaimer. We're just kidding about that.
Kidding.
But they wouldn't put it past that they've got some government little spies that they're creating as animals.
I think they do. We love you guys, and we hope you appreciate that we're trying to bring truth to light.
And also just have a conversation about it. Fact checkers out there in the world, oh gosh, it's so hard to even post things and talk about stuff because you get fact checked or your stuff gets taken down. And it's just we hope that we're not, again, just spewing out stuff without having hard facts and evidence and showing we're literally using their words to show you and say, hey, this exists. We're not just saying, we think that there's weather modification. It's no, they are telling us, no, we do have the capability to modify the weather.
And we have done it, and
we will continue to do it. Exactly. All right, well, we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.